Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, and a very warm welcome. I'm Archana Nair from AI CoursePod, your host for today's session, joined by my colleague Arvind Kannan. A special shout out to Nitin Naveen, VP of Innovation Strategy at AI CoursePod, and to Naveen Kumar and Rashmita Sen, who are working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. We're kicking off our very first webinar of 2026, and we couldn't be more excited to start the year with such an incredible panel. Before we dive in, let me give you a quick snapshot of AI CoursePod. For over 5 years, we have been building a global AI-driven knowledge community, connecting technology leaders with emerging trends. Our webinars and hybrid events are rooted in practical insights from industry experts, and we continue to expand our content library with blogs, podcasts, video clips, and newsletters. To stay connected, visit www.aicoursepod.io and follow us on social media. We'd love to have you by our side as we grow. Now, on to today's discussion, the Human Plus Digital Organization Empowering Workforces Through AI, Data, and Automation. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers. Chet Seeley, Vice President AI Strategy Manager from WSFS Bank, Supreet Nagi, Senior Director of Software Engineering at Northwestern Mutual, and our moderator, Manish Tabas, Senior Director Delivery from Infovision. Here's a quick disclaimer. Kindly note the views and opinions shared during this panel are strictly those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official positions, policies, or perspectives of their respective organizations. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Over to you, Manish.
Thanks, Archana. Hello, everyone. This is Manish Tabas. I'm a Senior Director at Infovision. So today, as we start, let's look at the big picture. We mostly focus on the digital part of this equation, right? But the human element is where strategy succeeds or fails. So, Chet, I would like to start with you. From your experience, how should a mature human and digital organization look like? And how should leaders balance AI automation with human judgment? Please.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I think for many, many years, if not decades now, I think we've had the same focus in terms of what organizations look like. And we now need to start planning differently because now we have humans and we have digital, and these now need to come together in a different sort of structure. And I think that structure is going to look different going forward. If you think about probably the structure that most of us belong to now, and certainly the structure we've belonged to in the past, they probably look a lot like a pyramid, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but it's probably what they look like. They're a rigid hierarchy of some sort, and it's designed, if you think of the pyramid design, it's designed for control ultimately. That's why that is shaped that way. But as we integrate AI into our organization, we need to think about whether that actual picture of a pyramid or that kind of triangle is the right image to get the control that we want. And I would suggest that that's not the case. The reason is AI, specifically agentic AI in particular, it's going to be able to act on its own. In fact, in our organization, it already is. In many of our personal lives, it already is. I have an AI agent that is legally authorized to act on my behalf as my banking agent. So it conducts all of my
Nice.
banking on behalf of me. And so if you think about kind of what agents are going to do for us in the future, they're out there thinking and doing on behalf of us. So the organization chart is going to need to look a little differently. And that pyramid kind of image is going to be obsolete in the future. I think that hierarchy then that we're used to, or at least the same picture that we've had in our minds for all of our lives, is going to look a little different. And instead of that triangle picture that we're used to in our minds, instead of that, we're probably going to have think of little pods, and in your organization you'll have these little pods that are cross-functional, and these little cross-functional pods or teams, if you want to think of them that way, Manesh, they will kind of start to interact with one another, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
and these pods are actually going to be actual teammates. Um, and so inside these pods are multiple people or agents or a combination of both. And so they're groups of actors, and they're perhaps some of those people or agents are going to be users. Some of those are going to be tools or agents. So I think we're going to have to start thinking about the organization in the future. Maybe it's going to look like those pods, but I'm also thinking about a different kind of image in my mind. Maybe many of us are familiar with the mythical creature, the centaur. And the centaur, if you're familiar with that, is kind of half human. I don't know what the other half is. Is it a horse? I think it is half horse. And in our context, I think that's where we start to blend AI with the human, and AI starts to handle some of the heavy lifting of the data analysis and the pattern recognition, while the humans provide the direction and the ethics that's necessary for us to be successful. So you have these kind of centaurs within a pod, if you will. And I recognize that's probably a bit of a stretch for some of us to imagine that, but I do want to stretch you that way because I think there needs to be a shift in our thinking, and the shift is going to primarily stretch those of you on this call who are leaders. How are you now gonna balance automation with oversight? I was at a lunch yesterday, and one of a senior leader who I'm familiar with had thrown out the concept that they were going to be able to, at some point, they were going to need as many supervisors or managers. And I immediately said that's not going to be the case. We're going to need more skilled managers in certain areas because we're going to be managing these groups of people. We're going to need more managers with critical thinking. We're going to need more managers who have higher standards of ethics. We're going to need more managers who are creative. And so you as a manager, I think, are going to need to think about your a new skill set that you're going to need to develop. And I'm calling it, for lack of a better word, and I don't know if this is actually a term, but I've used this now for a couple of years. I call it digital judgment. And it's a critical concept that I've started teaching my team a couple of years ago. And it's not really knowing how to code. It's the ability to evaluate kind of what's going on in your pod or your team against ethical standards. It's ability to evaluate against strategic context. It's the ability to evaluate against human values. And so it's these human-centric qualities or characteristics or standards that are really important, that helps us to ensure that while the algorithms might find the most efficient path, that's true, it isn't going to really matter much if there's organizational issues, or if there's a lack of organizational integrity, or if there's bias, right, Manesh? Um,
Yeah.
so that so as I think about it, then the image that starts coming to mind is actually an inverted pyramid. I think about kind of the upside down pyramid, and I think about these pods in this upside down pyramid now. Um, and I think of most of the people now are actually at the bottom doing execution. We're at the bottom doing execution. So at least that's how it is right now, right? So in a mature or AI organization, it's going to be flipped upside down. We're going to let AI handle the broad kind of execution up on top, and we're going to be at the bottom directing and decisioning. We're going to have responsibility for ethics,
All right.
orchestration, um,
So in
processing,
a structure,
scaffolding.
yeah. So in a structure, we can look for more of like a cross-functional pod as coming together as a team, right? And leaders looking for more different kind of
Exactly.
skills more. Yeah, yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Suprit, what's your take on it?
No, I think Chad very creatively crafted the answer. So I'm not going to actually repeat most of what he said, right? But I think I totally agree to the idea. I've started to see in that specifically pods getting spinned up. So if I were to kind of summarize my feelings on this one, the roles for the leaders, the organization will continue to shift from, in simple terms, managing tasks into managing outcomes and ethics, right? So that's where we'll start to shift. We'll start to foster more of an augmented leadership mindset. I think that's where the organizations are eventually moving into. So this is like Shed was saying, not just a technical appetite to let AI do things, but it is also a lot of leadership appetite to do it in the way that it's right for the organization. So I think, in short, if I were to say, AI is now becoming more and more, especially agentic AI is becoming more as a specialized intern in our organization, right? And our human continues to be that um, um, organizational EQ, right? So they are the ones who have the organizational EQ, whereas the agentic AI is the one which is the smartest intern with the highest IQ.
Right. So, Suprit,
Great
let's
point.
have some. Yeah, Chet, you want to go ahead?
No, I was just saying that was a great point.
Sure, sure. Right. So, Sprit, let's continue with you and let's get some insights, right, on how we can take compliance forward. So, as AI becomes daily tool for our teams, right, security is no longer just a backend issue. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the trust layer concept. How do we use data security and governance to bridge that gap so employees feel confident using these tools without compromising sensitive information? Yeah.
That's a great question, Manisha. I'm glad you asked me that, and I can probably take rest of the time to speak about it. But uh, the
And
trust
the
layer,
compliance thing, yeah, please.
yeah. So let me try to control my emotions here. But I think, in all honesty, right, the biggest mindset shift that is needed right now is the data governance, data security, data de-identification, privacy compliance, all the goodness, right? They're still as important as they are. And the difference here is that the perceptive must change from they are just defensive measures against a hack or a compliance versus more of an enabler. So they have more of a responsibility to serve for any organization to strive in the AI world, because they're not only protecting you, one, against more sophisticated AI-based attack, but they're also the prerequisite as an enabler for you to continue on your journey. So, for example, think of data de-identification as a very easy to understand example, right? We need data which is AI ready so that we can train our models and they can do things, the agents can operate on. Now, there will always be a continuous hesitation or a fear either in the users or in the leaders who are making that decision, fearing that, oh, it might accidentally leak some of my proprietary data. It might actually violate a regulation of GDPR standard or something of that sort, right? That's what, like, if you ask an executive today, so it's like, what keeps you up at night is like, oh, a breach or a something in the news. I don't want to be in the news for anything like that, right? So those trust layer governance mechanisms, framework standards have a lot more role to play now. So going back to the example that I started, right? We want to train it on the data. The data does contain personal identifiable information, the PII. Now think about a framework which can automatically scrub the PII and then get the training going, right? So you're safe from, it's like governance on the left. I would summarize that as confidence through compliance. if I were to, right? So you build your confidence because you know the underlying frameworks are compliant by default automatically. Um, uh, I'll just give a very quick example to kind of pin the point. Uh, think about we are writing, we're talking to someone, we're creating notes, or for whatever reason, we're writing and typing something in a Word file, and you happen to put in PII information, right? The SSN number, the email. You just save the file, and that's pretty much it. There is a automated business workflow that triggers and saying, I have identified sensitive information in there, automatically classifies the file as confidential because you have met the rules X, Y, and Z, put it in the safe location where it can be. And now you can't send it to your Gmail. You can't send it out within organization outside a secured mail. You can't paper print that. All of that is already applied on it. Then it gets into an agentic mode where the data gets scrubbed automatically before it is used for training. So if that file becomes an input for an agent, AI training, or for an actual use, the data is scrubbed already. So that is the level of maturity that these governance frameworks will have to come up so that they start to become actual enablers for any organization to go full speed on their AI journey. So I am actually personally very, very excited about this phase of maturity for all of us because I think it ultimately helps us be more secure and faster at the same time.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Chet, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I guess I just have to agree with everything that was just said. I too could probably spend the rest of this webinar going into a long discussion around security and the benefits of and frankly the exciting nature of this topic. But I agree. This is one of those topics that is really central to what we do, and it's hard to really separate a discussion around AI and the future of AI unless we get into a rather labored and maybe technical discussion around security. I think everything though has already been said on that topic.
All right. So, Chet, let's move forward, and this one is for you to start. Could you share some views on AI adoption? Like many organizations, they struggle to move from AI pilots to real workforce impact. So, what are the main factors that determine success of AI adoption?
Yeah, I think we've all seen probably headlines in the news about huge numbers of pilots, and it seems like some of the studies might be a little off in terms of perhaps their process but let's set that aside for a second because you can't say that all the studies are incorrect. It is fact that a lot of the pilots out there are not getting the results that at least the business sponsor had hoped for, or maybe the executive sponsor had promised. And I think we've just got to acknowledge that. So why is there such a big gap between the promise of AI and what the business is actually seeing and the actual impact to the workforce? I think the really key answer to that is, at least from my perspective and my experience, is we keep trying to modify, at least at companies I've worked with, we keep trying to modify our existing workflows, our existing ways of doing business with AI. We're not fundamentally taking AI to transform the business process. In other words, if we keep trying to fix broken human processes with AI, then we're by nature limiting AI at the outset. We're literally hamstringing or kind of making AI ineffective because we're limiting its ability to perform to what humans have already dreamt up of with the human created workflow. So I think rather than trying to bolt on AI to a legacy human created process, if that makes sense, Manesh, we need to actually let AI redesign the process itself. Now that is maybe a little bit of a scary idea for some executives, and it's new. But the idea of workforce, or if you don't want to go that far, that's fine. Then let's just go as far as workflow redesign. I think that's where our executives need to get to next. If they're going to really truly realize the power of a pilot or the broader impact of AI, then you got to let AI get at the workflow and actually redesign the entire workflow. And I think to make that happen, well, let me back up. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the Baumol effect or Jevons paradox, and I had to actually go back and pull this out. I hadn't seen it since university, but Baumol effect is that humans are still the slowest part of a process. Is what the Baumol effect basically is, and Jevons paradox is that so the implication, before I get to Jevons paradox, the implications of the Baumol effect is soon as you pull the humans out of the loop, output just doesn't speed up, it's going to explode. Okay, so that's the implication of that. And the Jevons paradox is that linear gains will really start to explode as well once you change kind of the human handoff in the process. So when AI at the end of the day starts to take over your scheduling, it starts to take over resource allocation, it starts to take over, I don't know what else here, help me, Manesh, start to take over your drafting and your routing and your reporting and maybe the bottlenecks that exist, and optimizing your tasks and your other constraints in the organization, then you're going to start seeing opportunity really increase, and you're going to start seeing data readiness arrive in the organization. So I think if we treat AI like a capacity hammer and give it that opportunity to hammer open opportunity for organizations, then we're going to realize that the pilot isn't the issue. AI was never the issue. It's the humans that have kind of pulled back on AI that probably is the issue.
Right. So yeah, surely we have the risk factors also, and that's where Supreet will come back to you, and let's see. When we talk about like there is a lot of fear around AI replacing jobs, but let's talk about the upside. How can automated governance take away the manual burden from our security teams? I'm really interested to know how we use the zero touch models to free up our people for more strategic and human-centric work. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thanks, Manish. I'm going to actually take one quick second to add on to what Chad was saying, right? So we had a very interesting discussion with a couple of people in the industry last week, and the same topic came up. And Chad, I was smiling because we made a comment saying you can't put a Ferrari engine in a horse cart and expect it to work, right? So the chassis of the car also has to be built to support the engine. So kind of emphasizing on the point that he was making is that some of the times we have seen where the pilots have not kicked on is because of that the entire workflow has to be built around AI. So AI is not just automating manual tasks, right? So we have to start to think beyond that to get to the efficiencies where we are kind of seeing a lot of unsuccessful pilots are getting turned off. So coming back to your question, Manish, I think again, it's the same nice thread where we started around how does governance and how does the trust layer plays an important role, but then it is also to our advantage. I'm a huge fan of zero touch automated governance. I'm actually writing a book on it soon, so it should be out.
Nice.
Basically, think of it, this is everything that we have spoken so far is around having that organizational EQ, the ethics, the business knowledge, the workflow overlaying on top of it, directing it how it should work, right? So that's where zero touch automated governance, things like the models automatically identify and remediate basic risk, right? So you can free up human so that they don't have to do basic manual task that they were so used to. Basically, freeing up human talent to be able to do things that really matters the most, to make them more away from so-called gatekeepers into the pathfinders, right? That's where all these zero-touch governance model comes in. They help in. Um, I'll give you a couple of examples which are like really materialistic, right? Almost every good company has APIs. It is the center of business integration nowadays, data access layer within your organization, backbone behind the MCPs to work on agenting, you name it. Now, uh, there are authentication authorization mechanism around it. One of them is, your tokens, your API keys. Many organizations I talk to, they have like thousands of API keys. They should be rotated eventually, right? Now, zero touch rotation for an effort like that, that's a real world example where organizations have saved millions of dollars and hundreds and thousands of developer hours just by implementing zero touch rotations. It just happens for you. You don't have to do anything, right? Cert management is another example that almost every company deals with right now. So all these kind of zero touch compliance models, which are actually baked into the system itself, will definitely result or should definitely result in two things. One, as we all said, freeing up the capacity of the engineers to work on something that's more strategic in nature. And second is building that trust layer that we spoke about in the beginning, make it even more solid so that we can go faster, right? We all know the saying that um, we have brakes in the cars, not to slow the car down, but to actually let it go faster. The better brakes you have, the more confident the driver is to drive faster because they know they can stop when they want. So that's where I think we need to have better brakes. We need to have automated governance, which works on its own, and it actually helps. Um, Again, just quickly wrapping up my thoughts here, we have seen in our organization, in a couple of other organizations as well, they all wrap back into materialistic outcomes, which are not just check the box. They are business outcomes that business can realize. There are direct compulsory regulatory compliance that you can match, and so that whether they are NIST standards or whether they are CMA assessments. So there's a lot of benefits coming out of maturing that layer and turning that upside down into a zero touch automated governance layer. I love this topic, and I'm very excited to see where all of the security evangelists take this topic next in the upcoming few years.
I know, Supriya, there's a lot to study for us also. And you coming up with your book, I will add to my list here.
Thanks, Manish. I appreciate it.
Supriya, thanks. All right. Here we are. So let's step onto some innovation phase. Chat this one for you, please. It's clear that AI is no longer the future. It's our daily reality. But as we continue to innovate at higher speeds, there is a delicate balance to strike. So, according to you, what's the secret to keep people engaged and invested rather than disoriented?
Yeah, we've all felt that at times where change is coming at us from all different directions, and we feel that sense of, oh my goodness, just being tired or exhausted, or some of us, even as I'm looking at the chat, there's some managers that are worried about being, I'll say it slightly different. They're worried about being replaced. That's a kind of like fatigue, right? You're trying to change with AI as it's going along, but oh my goodness, how much change do I need to do? And am I just going to get replaced? It's the same kind of thing. um, let me introduce a concept called provenance, and I'm going to come back to that in just a second. But I want to give that thought in your head, and I'm going to come back after I share a quick story. But yeah, I have felt that, and I've started talking about AI fatigue a little differently. I heard a comedian, and this is what kind of changed my mind, by the way. I heard a comedian tell this story. It was a joke, of course. He was up in an airplane with a whole bunch of other people, and uh, they were at 50,000 feet, and the Wi-Fi went out, and some guy next to him on the plane started complaining because the Wi-Fi was out, and this comedian start teasing the guy and saying, "What are you complaining about? You're participating in a miracle. You're 50,000 feet in the air. What is there to be upset about?" Um, uh, but in reality, we understand that when things get progressively better, our expectations rise, and sometimes um, as we have higher expectations, um, then sometimes we're actually not happier. In fact, we can have a higher sense of pressure, if that makes sense. And so in those situations, we can feel kind of friction with the new set of tools instead of the freedom that the new tool offers. So I want you to imagine, and this is going to be a little bit of an exercise, but just go with me here. Just go with me for 10 seconds. Just imagine it is not 2026, it's 2036, it's 10 years from now, okay? And AI is everywhere. There's something called unlimited AI. So AI is everywhere all the time. It's everything everywhere. So what's going to make the difference if AI is everywhere all the time? What's the big difference maker? And I would assert that the big difference maker in 10 years is not AI. It's actually going to be humanity. And so what I've started teaching our organization is that AI actually gives us the opportunity in the future to explore what I call the human premium. So we've started teaching AI not as we're changing to keep up with AI, which is just, I mean, how are we going to do that? No, we've actually started teaching AI as kind of the enablement of the opportunity for us to be more human and to bring out this more opportunity to pursue if AI is everywhere and AI content is everywhere and all things are AI and AI can generate everything everywhere all the time in the reports then the difference in maker in the future is going to be our ability to explore our humanity. So the real opportunity over the next 10 years is for people to become more creative, to become better critical thinkers, to become better at their better subject matter experts, right? So the real thing that we're exploring inside of our organization is not change with AI. Oh, that's implicit. You're going to grow with the technology, but we're not pushing people to do that. We're encouraging people to figure out how do you become more human, which is really fun. And when you think about becoming more creative or more better critical thinker, or better at your craft, whatever that is, well, who doesn't like that? And the change is going to come along with you. So we're not if you reframe it in your mind, then no one's inflicting change on you now, and you're not trying to race to keep up with this technology because really, who cares? That's going to happen anyway. You now get to explore all the fun things you want to do in life because in 10 years, whoever you really are at your core and whatever you can do as a human being that's different from the tech, which it will be different because it's not human, um, whatever you can do better than other humans because you've taken time to learn that, that's going to be the big enabler. That's what provenance is. And so I want you to go and just focus on that word for the next 10 years of your life. Provenance is something that we're going to start hearing quite a bit about. It's not a new word, but it's something we haven't focused on much, and AI is going to push us to think more about that. And so I hope Manish thinking about AI differently and kind of reframing that from a need to chase AI, which is inherently not going to be a fun exercise because you're chasing a technology that's based on an agile process, which means it's going to be changing every single day, every single second. And that just sounds like a nightmare, even for me. And I like this stuff. So I think if we just focus more on the humanity and enjoy that and then grow with the tech as it comes along, I think that will be really fun for all of us.
True, right. So, Suprit, if we take AI Unlimited forward, right? So, what would be the innovations you would be looking forward to?
Yes,
What's
I
it?
Well, yeah, go ahead. This is a fun one.
This is a fun one, Chad. I'm glad you tossed that term out. I'm actually going to use it somewhere else. So please, and I'll give you the credit for that. Yeah. So yes, we are almost at the surface of exploring that, and most of the organizations are trying to achieve it, right? So I think I'm going to actually um, try my best to pin this back to the theme of the topic today, right? Like the human aspect of it as well. So I do think that the purpose-driven innovation is going to be the center of it, right? So when I say that, I mean two things. One is people will continue to lose interest in cool tech. We are used to it now, thankfully, that we eventually next day something else will come and there's another version of iPhone and there are things. So we continue to lose interest in the cool tech eventually. So is with the AI, right? Okay, everybody's hearing about it, it's AI fatigue, but then how do we continue to be enthusiastic about it, continue to be involved, and bringing it back into the organization? I think the organizations can continue to win the interest of the people of the organization toward AI is through the purpose-driven innovation, right? So they generally forget the cool tech, but they will remember the unsolved frustration for them. If the AI can actually benefit the employees of an organization and save them some time, and then can also help them grow at the same time. I'll give you an example. There was I was just talking to someone reviewing a paper, and they proposed a very great idea around, hey, well, the organizations should be able to predict objectively the productivity gain coming out of AI. It's like that's not new. We know that. But then they took a fun step further out and saying, we will give you all these productivity AI tools to improve you by 20%. Would that mean we will pay you less? No. Would that we want you to work less? No. Then what do I do? It's like, I would like you to get trained on the upcoming technologies where I want you to be, right? So the organization succeed because you are able to get through the pilot. As we talk about, you have developer productivity here, but then you're also building a workforce which is more strategic in nature. All the same people, like as Chet was saying, they get eventually organically trained into where that human ethical judgment comes in. So there is always a question about AI will replace people. I think it will if you don't um, cope up with it. Is in the very easy term, I would say, right? Human race has been evolving. We have evolved through a lot of technological advancements already. And this is the same fear we had every decade or so. Like, is this the last thing? Is this the last thing? Could there be something else, right? Now we're also scratching quantum. I'm not going to go there, but what does that bring it to us? So we are a species we know how to survive out of this. It is just that if we stop to evolve, is that's where we become replaceable. So I am looking forward for the innovations where AI not only frees me up, but also kind of helps me get to the level where I still become relevant for my organization, for my industry. I think that's where the innovation, the leader should continue to focus on, so that one of the biggest mindset, in short, is the cultural fear around it, and they continue to overcome that. So that would be my take on that.
Right. So you took me when you said quantum, right? I know it's a huge thing out there, and we keep coming on the discussions like RSA and quantum, how things will go forward, right? Yeah. So it's sure we need to evolve, and evolution is the thing that has to be taken forward for all. We have a couple of questions from the audience, right? So I think it's a good time we can take those forward. So the first one I have is from Freddie. It says, in a human plus digital organization, what decisions should never be automated, no matter how good the AI becomes? So Suprit, you want to take this one first?
Sure, it's a very interesting question. Again, should never be automated, no matter. Okay, that's very interesting. I don't know if I have like a underlined bold answer and saying this should never happen with, but so far what we know, I think crisis management is something that would take a lot of time where we will start to rely completely on AI. It'll be more of data gathering and data point collection for us, but human insight, human judgment will continue to paramount in that space for quite a while, in my experience, so I wouldn't say it will never, but I'll say between everything else that I'm seeing, I think crisis management, whether it's for our organization, for a community, or if for a country, that will continue to be human driven for quite a while, in my personal opinion.
Right. So, Chet, you want to take it forward to like what we should not automate?
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're drawing up at this point in time versus the future. I think the future, the answer would be different if it was 10 years from now. But if we were answering at this point in time, um, if if it's not a repeatable process with a steady stream of data, then it's very questionable that you would want AI decisioning that. In fact, even given a repeatable process with lots of data, I think human in the loop is always the way to go. So the answer I would give you is AI never decides. Um, in the future, or I guess presently, if it's a repeatable process and there's enough data, AI can be, trusted in those processes to a confidence interval of perhaps 95%. But depending on how important the decision is, if it's an infant ICU, even a confidence interval of 95%, even if you've trained it on repeated processing, that's not going to work. So it depends on the context in which the AI is performing, that you would want it to make a decision. Going forward, if you want to skate to where the puck is going to be, we'll have AI that will learn like a human and perform like a human. Some would say it would be human, and we could get into an argument today perhaps around, well, it is a submarine like a human because it doesn't really swim. It's a machine. It doesn't swim like a human. And I would tell you that's beside the point. It doesn't really matter. It gets the job done. And I will tell you, AI in the future is going to be much like that. It will perform in the way that a human does, but in the way it thinks and perhaps how it can interact. So at that point in the future, my answer is going to be different. But that's how I'd answer it today.
All right, let's see how things evolve for sure. We can take one more question from the audience. This one is from Edna. There's a lot of concern that AI may replace jobs. From a leadership perspective, how do you distinguish between job replacement and job evolution when adopting AI? Chet, you want to take this one?
I definitely want to take this one. So there's been a lot of this in the news, guys, and there's a lot of headlines out there, jobs can be replaced, 95% of all jobs. If you actually dig down into the notes on that, the actual studies say that 12% of the job functions can be actually eliminated. And then if you go further in there, if a job function, let's say, I'm going to make this up, let's say it was the controller function in finance. It doesn't say that the controller job can be eliminated because it doesn't take into account what the controller needs to do between the controller and the accountant, or the controller and the general manager, so it doesn't think about cross-functionally what has to happen. So I am not concerned about a wholesale elimination of jobs being eliminated. And here's why, guys. Think about 1983 or 5 or something, that ATMs came out. We all have a debit card, right? Most of you have a debit card, and most of you use it. Now, that does not mean that banks went away or bank tellers. They're all still sitting in your bank. I don't go to the bank too much, but they're there.
Yes.
They didn't go away. Their jobs changed. And today we see that happening in radiology. Radiologists are not reading, x-rays as much. They're moving on to different parts of their jobs. That's a repeatable task. It's easily trained based on lots of data, perfect for AI. So it doesn't mean that there's not going to be a radiologist in the future that's going to be overseeing the process. That part should scare the hell out of you. So that's not going to go away. There will always be radiologists. But I do think jobs will change. I do think some jobs are going to have less in their industry. And I think that that change over time, I want to minimize that it will be difficult for some. I don't think we're going to be driving trucks down the interstate in 10 years. I think that will all be automated. So there's going to be certainly going to be large swaths of the population or the workforce that will be automated, but will those where some of that formerly drove a truck, will they now be overseeing people that are now, will they be overseeing 2 or 3 trucks that are driving? Probably. So I think it's just a way of re-looking at the workforce. So I just disagree fundamentally that even the studies right now that say that things are going to get eliminated, actually, when you look into the facts, they don't actually say that. In between the different job functions, they can't be eliminated. There's too much interaction there.
Sure, Chet.
Just very
Yes,
quick seconds. We also always have to remember with this sentiment, the new entire workforce is actually getting trained on. Like the people who are passing out of the college are AI trained people. So the jobs and the talent needs to continue to match, and hence will not have this problem. So we always undermine the fact that my 5-year-old can use AI now when I couldn't even smell AI 5 years back. So.
True. The young ones are catching up faster, for sure. All right, guys, as we are close to our assigned time for today, I know this session has been very informative. I'd like to thank both of you. Ashna, over to you now.
Incredible. Thank you, Supreet, Chet, and Manish for sharing such valuable perspectives with us today. The session is streamed live on our LinkedIn channel, and the recording will soon be available on YouTube for you to revisit and share. As we gracefully step into 2026, we have many exciting sessions lined up across industries from banking and telecom to retail and beyond. So stay updated with AI CoSpot website and social media channels. We are also grateful to our knowledge and innovation partner InfoVision and our technology partner Digit7 for their support in making this webinar a success. Once again, thank you for being here and for making this community vibrant. We look forward to your continued participation as we grow together. Wishing you a wonderful day ahead and a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.